Hello, welcome back to me choosing violence in astrology. Today, I want to tell you that if you're going to give an astrologer money for them to tell you how to plan your life using astrology, you had better be doing so from the intention of supporting that astrologer and learning about your chart from an educational perspective, and do not make that decision because you actually want to plan your life using astrology. It's not possible. Okay. Um, this is 100% my opinion. I'm just filled with, like, again, annoyance and perspective about some things. And it's fueled by my own experiences of doing these exact same things and not getting the results that I want. And so I still think astrology is amazing, and I still think astrology has a place. This is a whole channel for astrology. But I don't think that you should plan your life around it. I don't think you should give it that power. I just don't think you should. I don't think it's that powerful. I think you are more powerful than your astrology. And that should be the center point focus of astrology, not the astrology itself. So go do what you want, right? Like, give whoever you want money to do whatever you want, like, whatever, okay? But be very, very clear about what you're doing, about why you're doing it. And that doesn't mean it's bad to do that, but I just, like, what an astrologer, what someone who is in a position of guiding you through a language that you don't know, with moral implications, with implications for your soul, with these, like, heavy, deep reasons that, like, you need to, I don't know, conquer your fate or something. Don't give them that power. Take it as a very impassioned learning time to learn about your own chart, to learn about the archetypes philosophically. I was talking to a student yesterday about the fact that she didn't know her exact birth time, and that was kind of bothering her. And I said, okay, well, I think you have two options here. You can either go talk to a really skilled technical astrologer to get a chart rectification, which is where they can go back and ask you some very precise questions about your life and try to map out what's your most likely rising sign. And then I said the other option that you have is to just let it go, because you could be literally any of the archetypes, and you kind of just need to commit to one to have a clear relationship to it, because ultimately that's all we're doing, is we're creating relationships with these things that we perceive as outside of ourselves. Okay. So, and I was like, maybe this anxiety that you feel, the frustration, is a cover, like maybe you're using that, there's something else, there's something a little bit deeper. And I know I have this, and that's why I've made this mistake of wanting astrology to tell me how to live my life for years, instead of just owning what I want that doesn't necessarily have a cause. Now, you could say it has a cause, because I could go and say, oh, why do I want to know astrology? Why do I want to know my birth chart? What's my purpose, right? I already know my purpose. I'm scared to step into it when I say that, right? Like, this is where metaphysics gets a little tricky, because it doesn't end. If you don't give yourself a baseline, you're going to be swimming in nothingness forever, which isn't more true or more false, right? But if you do have a desire for something, unless you allow that to be your ground level, you're never going to get it. You can keep digging below it, sure, but you're going to go on forever. You can dig below forever, and you're never going to have an actual embodied experience where you claim something. And that's why if you go and let someone walk you through how to plan your life using astrology, instead of plan your life using your own desire, I don't know. I see the potential for a lot of disappointment, and that's because I've lived it. Okay, I've lived it. The last few years, Saturn's been going over my ascendant, especially like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and I remember, like, looking at my chart, looking at Saturn, literally probably the day that it was on my ascendant. And I was like, I had already come out of like a 6-month period where I was doing just this because I'm approaching my Saturn return. And I was like, let me get ahead of my Saturn return. What a joke. I was like, let me get ahead of my Saturn return and start taking responsibility where I think I need to take responsibility now and put my dreams off. Let me just put my dream off and take responsibility in the way that I think that I should. Literally within 2 months of that, I got a chronic illness. It's been now like a year and a half of like walking back that decision that I've made. And, I don't regret this perspective, but I'm just saying this to hopefully save you some time. And it can be very tricky to claim what you really want because you don't know what the steps are to get there. But once you get that baseline, you don't need anything else to justify it for you. In fact, it's the energy that you give of your own self-justification that will bring you into life experiences that actually make you feel like you're doing something. Okay, instead of like hitting the same wall or going in a loop or a circle. So this is my astrology hot take right now. Like honestly, to that end, I don't even know what the point of astrology is. Okay, and this is something I'm figuring out in real time, and you can tell me what you think the point is. Obviously, I'm still invested in it. I still think there's a powerful point. And I would hedge my bet right now to say that the point is to create poetry out of personal truth. There's a lot of self-responsibility that astrology can allow you to step into, and that's the more proper use of Saturn work, I think, which is not the responsibility that someone has put on outside of you. That's not coming from you, but it's taking responsibility for the fact that you choose your own morality in this life. You choose your own decisions. I read a quote recently that said, fate is what happens when you let your destiny go unchecked. Or I don't know the exact quote, but the point that I took from the quote is that until you intervene with a choice in your life, you're just playing out fate. And you get on your destiny, you get on your dharma timeline when you start choosing what you want, not because it aligns with everything outside of you, but because it aligns with what's going on internally. Like it's internally coherent. Your actions match your thoughts, match your deepest desires, and you're being faithful to that. And, this does go in a lot of different directions, which, we can talk about, but by that, I mean like negative directions. Like let's say someone has an impulse that most of society would claim is quite destructive or negative. And, fortunately or unfortunately, my advice would still apply. And that's a very sensitive thing to say and to hold to. But that's something maybe I can unpack a bit later. But this is truly what I think. It's truly been rattling around my mind, and I hope this empowers you to connect to your deepest desire and let that motivate you. Let that be the reason. Don't spiritually bypass or gaslight yourself into thinking the like material desire is not spiritual enough, or that you don't know. Because even accepting the fact that you don't know is claiming a morality. And starting with what's true for you is going to be the faster way than trying to take on someone else's truth. And unfortunately, this is all too prevalent in the astrological world that I see online, because people are out here trying to convince each other of things not dissimilar to what I'm trying to do right now. But my goal with this was just to get this out of my body, because it's been rattling around for days, and I don't know. So don't it doesn't come down to like someone's offering something bad, so don't do it. It comes down to fine tune why you're doing something and own that, because once you take responsibility for that, then you will actually get it, right? You will actually get it, right? Why would you spend your time planning your life based on based on things that are already going to happen? And moreover, like what's already going to happen is currently still infinite. It's currently still limitless. You using astrology to map out your life is actually limiting you unless you have a very clear intention, a very clear direction, which very well could be, hey, I'm really confused. And that's the baseline that I know myself to be at right now. But I don't think that's what is happening. I think people actually do know what they want. And I don't even think it's difficult for people to admit that anymore. So that's my spiel.